all of a sudden the scrutiny just goes through the roof. It's like, all right, you're an Origin player now. You should be the best player on the field every week. And I wasn't handling that well. And I sort of went from the young kid, like he can make mistakes, he's all right, everyone sort of liked me. Then now, like, all right, you're playing Origin, you have a bad game, it's like, shit. And I was just reading into that way too much. And I was probably a person that was a people pleaser for a lot of like growing up. And if someone didn't like me, then I was like, well, why? You don't even know who I am.
Yeah. Nathan Cleary, how are you, brother?
Very good. Very good. How are you?
I'm good, brother. Welcome to the GC. Hey, it's nice to have you here, man.
No, it's great to be here. I love it up here. It's good vibe, good energy, and you got a nice little space here. So
it's we're very privileged, bro. We're right in the thick of Palmy, and I was saying to you before, it's like Palmy looks good on you, man. I was like, can we see you here? Can we see you here post footy?
Post retirement, maybe one day. I do like the lifestyle up here, so we'll see.
Mate, how's the off season been? Seems like you've been everywhere, traveling all around, right?
Yeah, it's been really good. Been quite lucky. Got to get overseas, and was sort of based in the UK, but ticked off a few countries and. Then came back, pretty much got surgery straight away, and now just up here, sort of training, getting back into the swing of things before actually going back to training in December. So
where'd you go overseas?
So I was in Manchester, then we went Switzerland, Barcelona, Dusseldorf in Germany.
Oh, yeah.
Mary had a game there, so I went and watched her.
Gotcha.
That's pretty sick. Then did a night in Mallorca as well. So
that's so sick.
Nice,
it must be so cool to be like, because obviously, like, when you're in the thick of it, like, during the year, like, you don't have a lot of time to get out. But now you've got, like, minimum of 8 weeks. Like, throw a little shoulder surgery in there as well. But it's nice to be able to bounce around, like, with no obligations, right?
No, that's what I love the most about off-season is, like, just getting away. I think traveling sort of refreshes me. And that thing of, no obligations and no commitments, it just feels free. Yeah. And you probably don't have that during the season. It's very much like, got to be here at this time doing this. So, I always like to sort of get away and refresh. And I think it puts me in good stead for the season.
I saw you did a hike in Switzerland.
Yeah, bro. That was honestly the best thing I've ever done.
Mate, it looked epic, man.
You know how sometimes you'll see things on like Instagram, like reels, and you're like, oh, I don't know if it's going to live up to the hype. It might be a bit anticlimactic. But I got there, I was just like, wow, this is I think you put
up a story on your socials where it was just like you're walking into this lake with like the mountains behind you. I was like, bro, that's it, man.
I want to go back there and just do like 2 weeks of just hiking because in that area alone there were like 20 different hikes you could do. So
gotcha.
I definitely want to go back. It was just it was incredible.
I did Switzerland earlier this year and same thing. There's like, and I don't know if you had it. I forgot where we were, but there's like little huts like spread all throughout the mountains. So you could just go through like multi-day hike up. Like we did one where I think it was like an 8-hour hike up, 4,000 feet of elevation. And then you've got like this beautiful like open lake that's like maybe 4 degrees because all the ice like melts into it. But then you've got food and you've got wine, you got a bed to sleep in, and then you just hike back down the next day.
It was such a good setup.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it's mad. Definitely want to go back.
So what's planned? You got a couple more weeks off before you go back into training. How are you feeling? How is the body?
Yeah, it's all right. It's getting there. It's a pretty slow process, but it's getting better each day. Just sort of rehabbing at the moment. At the moment, it's sort of just trying to get range back in it.
Yeah.
And then got about a week and a half. Go back to training, start running, and then it's like a week and a half and another 2 weeks off over Christmas. And then once I get back, it's sort of ticking the boxes. And
I think we were talking yesterday, like seeing the boys go back, like other teams go back November 1,
makes me
man.
sick. Makes me sick. My first like couple years in first grade, we were always back like mid-November, and it's like 6 weeks until Christmas break, and then you get another like 6, 7, 8 weeks of preseason. It's just like, I see it now. I was overseas, and I just felt like so grateful that we got so deep into the season because overseas, and I'm seeing people going back November 1. I'm like, bro, that's such a long preseason.
It's a lot to walk into, man.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the grand final. I feel like we have to. We're here. Obviously, this is a mental health and sport podcast, but I would like to touch on the grand final. The winning feeling, like. Can you describe it? Like what is the feeling when you walk into the sheds and you've got like all the boys sitting around in the semicircle, like realizing that you've just gone like 4 in a row?
Yeah, it's always pretty surreal. And never really like, it's just hard to come to terms with straight away until you're probably next couple of days, you're obviously, having a good time on the piss and that. But then, sitting around in the circle, just seeing the trophy there, it's just like, wow, we actually did it. And that euphoric feeling when the siren goes and we all just like come together. Yeah. That's a feeling that will never get old. You just can't really get that feeling in any other aspect of life. So,
and how what I'd really like to know is like, how does it differ? Because obviously, like you've gone 4 years. Like, how is the first one different to the fourth one?
Yeah, I'd say the first one was probably more relief, especially the fact that we lost the year before. So I was like, shit, if we get to the grand final 2 years in a row and lose both of them, like it just felt like so much was put into that, and it was pretty much everyone's first competition, like winning. So that was probably more relief. And then each year I don't know, it's kind of felt different. Obviously the one last year against the Bronx was like super euphoric because it was just like, what the hell just happened? Yeah. But like this year, everyone was so tired. I think it was such a hard game. Like I was celebrating with people and like my lats were just like cramping up. I was like trying to hug people and I'm just like cramping. I'm like, oh God, I just need to sit down and give me a second. I think me and Yoey ended up just before we went on the stage to get like our rings, we we're just sitting down. We're just like, wow, like we've just done it. Like it's just crazy. So I think, they're all different in minuscule ways, but still just an amazing feeling.
When you've done like so much in the game, like how do you readjust your goals? Because obviously like winning a grand final is a goal, right? Now you're sitting here looking to the future. How are you looking to readjust your goals going forward?
Yeah, it's a question that often gets asked about like motivation and stuff like that. But I think the way I think of it is like I'm not really a person that will sit down and have like yearly goals. Like I think I know what I want, but it comes from like just like little improvements each day and trying to find the joy in that. I remember like goal setting when I was younger. I was like, all right, all I want to do is play NRL. Yeah. And then you get to NRL, it's like, all right, what's next? And then it's like, all right, if I win one competition, like I could happily retire. Yeah. But then you win a competition, it's like, all right, well, this is pretty addictive. I want to win another one. And then I sort of try and think of things like I don't want to set goals that are objective or sort of like materialistic things. I want to set goals that are daily goals, like just trying to better myself each day.
I was going to say, what's an example? What does that look like?
So like for me, I feel like I'm in my best space when I'm got a good morning routine. So it could be as easy as getting up and reading some of a book or writing in a journal. And I'm like, it's just that little thing of like accomplishment, those small feelings of accomplishment, gratitude, practicing that. I think it just puts me in a good headspace, and then sort of success through footy is a byproduct of that. Gotcha. I always sort of like to view things as like, you know, success or happiness is a byproduct of the little things I'm doing each day. I think sometimes like people can get lost in, I read a book once and it was like, I don't know the quote word for word, but it was essentially like, stop waiting for the completion to be happy. You know what I mean? Like actually find happiness through little things each day. Might be helping someone, gratitude. And then happiness is a byproduct. Happiness is not a destination to reach. It comes through little things that you do each day, and that's sort of what I carry into each day.
It's like that concept of like continual like forward motion.
Exactly.
Did you ever watch Jonah Hill's doco, Studs?
I haven't, no.
It's like pretty much a documentary about his psychologist, and it's it's so amazing for anyone like who's listening. Like that's such a cool documentary because this guy, I think his name's Phil Studs, psych 70. He's actually got Parkinson's, so he obviously struggles like physically. But what he does was he wants people to leave his practice better than when they come in. So he like draws all these little tools and gives like people tools and strategies so that when they are in a difficult position, then they've got something to walk out with. And he actually draws it for them and gives them this piece of paper. It's epic. Cool, it's like one of my favorite docos ever. But he talks about this idea of like continual forward motion, where it's just like the idea that we're going to be perfect and that everything that we're going to do, whether it's the perfect game, the perfect routine, like that's not a reality. But the idea that we're continually moving, and that's kind of like what you're saying, where it's just like, if I can get a good morning routine, like tick a couple boxes, like I feel like I'm on my way to a good day.
Yeah, it's like just enjoying the little wins that come along. And I think that all those added up end up being big wins, like, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, a week down the track. Like a lot of things can happen in a week. So I think the more you can just add up those little wins in a day and actually enjoy those and enjoy the journey, then, you know, everything else is just a byproduct of that. And, you know, I think as you were saying, it's like, you're not going to be perfect. And I think that was a big sort of, when the penny dropped for me, it's like constantly trying to be perfect. And it's so hard to like chase that all the time because it's just not a reality. It's like, all right, things are going to go wrong, but when they do, all right, I can't change them, try and learn from it and then move on. Like, I think that's one thing that's really helped me is like, once something's happened, it's like, okay, I can't change that. So let's, keep moving forward and just try and improve.
I know that you're continually working on your mental game. Like I had a really good conversation with our good friend, Hayden Knowles.
Shout out Hayden.
Shout out Hayden. One of the great men. He actually did a really cool podcast with you like way back in like 2019, I believe it was. Really cool conversation. And he talked about that you're, even back then when you were like 23 or whatever you were, that you were constantly curious about that kind of stuff. Like, first of all, like where does that curiosity come from? to work on your mental game? Because to be honest, a lot of guys probably aren't figuring that out till maybe later in their careers.
Yeah, I think it was probably just stemmed from trying to find like an edge, like constantly trying to find like little edges. And I felt like I was doing that physically, but particularly that 2019 year was probably my worst year form wise and footy wise. So I was like, all right, well, I feel like I'm doing everything right physically. And then conversations with H in particular, he was like, all right, let's dive into like the mental space. And at that time, I was quite curious about the mental space and just how the mind works and why things happen. And I was like, yeah, like I just want to get better. And through that 2019 year, I had, I don't know if you brought it up, but like the FOPO, like fear of other people's opinions.
Yeah.
I was sort of struggling with that. And
What do you mean? Like, is it from people online or is it
in
particular?
Yeah, in particular, people online. And there was like, it just seemed like such a stupid thing to me because when I first came into first grade, I didn't care about what anyone thought. I was just having fun. I was a young kid, just playing footy, living out a dream essentially. And then, you know, I always saw NRL as, oh, it's such a tough physical challenge. And then you start playing and it's like, yeah, physically it's tough, but it's the mental side that's way tougher. And I just never really thought about that before. So kind of came to 2019. I'd played Origin for the first time the year before, and then all of a sudden the scrutiny just goes through the roof. It's like, all right, you're an Origin player now. You should be the best player on the field every week. And I wasn't handling that well. And I sort of went from the young kid, like he can make mistakes, he's all right, everyone sort of liked me. So then now, like, all right, you're playing Origin, you have a bad game, it's like, oh, he's shit. And I was just reading into that way too much. And I was probably a person that was a people pleaser for a lot of like growing up. And if someone didn't like me, then I was like, well, why? You don't even know who I am.
Yeah.
And then I sort of flipped that. I'm like, well, why am I caring about what they think? Like, I don't know who they are. Their profile picture on Instagram is a picture of a car.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, I have no connection to it at all. And that's when I sort of had conversation with H and we sort of, and even like my dad and stuff like that. And we sort of brought it down to this FOPO, like fear of other people's opinions. And to be honest, it was quite crippling at the time. Like I'd make a mistake in a game and I'd be thinking about what people were writing about me, like during the game. It's
Far
like,
out, man.
how am I meant to play well when I'm worried about that? Like it just, and I was probably frustrated by it at the time because I'd like, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, oh, just don't listen to it. You know, like, oh, don't read into it. But it's the sort of era that we're in at the moment where like social media is so accessible and all that. It's just, it's actually so addictive to look and sort of seek those things out. So did a lot of work on that and really enjoyed it and just felt like that next year, 2020, my form and the way I was playing like was just so much better. I had a inner confidence about myself. I wasn't really caring about what people thought and I just really narrowed down my circle of, all right, who am I going to listen to? Like who are in my corner, who has my back? I'll listen to their opinions, but everyone else, like, don't worry about it. Like it's not, like that doesn't matter to me, you know?
I think that's really cool. We had Matt Horton on a little while ago, and he talked about that exact same thing. He was an Olympic swimmer. He went under a heap of scrutiny, I think, in the Rio Olympics when he called someone out for being a drug cheat. And he said he called someone out early in the morning, and he said that whole day, like media was peppering him. It was the whole thing, and then he had the race that evening, and obviously like won gold, did the whole thing. But I was like, how do you deal with that when you've got so much scrutiny, you've got so many people talking at you? It's just like, mate, in that moment or specifically afterwards, he's just like, I lean on people who are closest to me because they usually have the same morals and values that I do.
Yeah.
And so he's like, and pressure's like, it's a privilege, but it's also like a newspaper. Like you can read it and have it in front of you, but you can also just put it under your arm and keep moving.
That's really
and I really loved when he said that.
Yeah. And I also think like in a way, it's almost disrespectful to the people in your corner if you're so worried about what other people are thinking and not taking their opinions on board or taking their support. Like that, like I've had such a great group around me, particularly like family, teammates, coaches, all the way through. And it's like I was almost neglecting that for these random people that just wanted to have like a shot at me. And a lot of the time when people write things to you, like it's not that deep, you know, like they just write it to try and get a reaction.
Yeah.
But like you sort of take that on board, and I was just like, I took myself out of that, and I was like, look, I have so many great people around me, like I'm actually disrespecting them by not like allow myself to open up to them and take their support on board and take their opinions on board and worry more about what they're thinking of me rather than these other people.
You talked about doing the work. Like you and H and your dad had a bunch of conversations about doing the work. Like what does the work look like? Is it reading? Is it courses? Is it talking to other people? What does that look like?
Yeah, I did a course. It was actually through COVID when we had a break for COVID. Yeah. So I did like a course that H passed on to me. It was essentially like just trying to better yourself mentally. But I was like, yeah,
Gervais?
the Gervais one, yeah.
Is it Michael Gervais?
Yeah, Michael Gervais.
It's not Ricky Gervais.
That'd be a good one. Make it a bit funnier.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was like Michael Gervais, and he worked with Pete Carroll, who was the coach of the Seahawks. And it was just, yeah, it was cool. Like, I just had never really, like, dove that deep into mental sort of health in sport and bettering your mental fortitude, I guess. So learned a lot through that. And then it was just sort of trying to pick up things that worked for me. I think everyone's different, but for me, it was always, like, I was always at my best when I was practicing gratitude. Like, sometimes, like, I don't know, it can feel a bit cringe just writing down 3 things that you're grateful for, but it just gets your mindset in the right space, particularly early in the morning. If you just write 3 things that you're grateful for, it just sets you in the right headspace for the day.
Did you ever do that with Resilience Project, Hugh Van Collenberg?
Bro, that is my favorite thing ever.
One of the greatest talks, because I think he was doing the rounds back when we would have first came into grade, right? And I think I went from Bronx to the Titans, and he came in. It was like a tricky time, had a bunch of injuries, and like that, writing 3 things down flips the switch. Yeah. It's like, and then instead of like consistently looking for like the bad things, because that's the way we are, we're like negatively inclined. That's the way we're built and wired. But when you can start reframing, like positive reframing, and looking for the good things, even better. And but the biggest, like the best thing is like the little things. Yeah. It's like, I watched sunrise this morning. Yeah.
It's so easy to overlook. Like, right. You know what I mean? And when you actually take it in, and it's like, you become so much more aware of so many great things around you. And I think the Resilience Project, I think Hugh came in and spoke to us when we were in, I would have been like 17 maybe. And I thought it was mad then. Like, he was talking about this moment, all this, and I thought it was really cool. But it was probably like something that I didn't take on board as much in that time, like, young. And then I read his book probably 2 years ago, The Resilience Project. And like, I would, recommend that to anyone, particularly in sport, but anyone, like, just through life. Like, just flipping your mindset. And there's people, little kids in third world countries that are just so happy, they're smiling over the littlest things. And we're like, we've got so much more at our disposal, and sometimes just take it all for granted.
And I think about that all the time. Like, why are we constantly in this space where it's just like, if I if I get this new car, then I'll be happy.
Yeah,
it's like the if and then concepts. Like, if I get this new house, then I'll be happy. If I get that premiership, then I'll be happy. It's like, well, how do we actually like slow right down and be present for what we've got? Yeah, like, and mate, I struggle with it. I'm sure we all struggle with it. 100%. But if you're aware of it, I think that's a great starting point.
Yeah, I think being aware is the most important thing. And you're right. Like, it's so hard with like social media and all that these days, where everyone's showing off their best self. And then, but like, I think if you're constantly like, the pursuit of happiness is, when I get this, then I'll be happy. Like, it just, I don't know, just personally for me, it doesn't work like that. And I've definitely fallen into that trap before. But I think I'm at my happiest when, I'm just enjoying the little moments each day, grateful for the little things, the people around me, the sun, even if it's raining, being grateful for that. Like, and you just find yourself in such a better space.
You talk about your like support network and the crew you lean on. Who are the crew that you typically lean on?
I'm really lucky with my family. Like, we've just got such a great, close-knit family. Both my parents are still together, and they've taught us sort of what caring and love is about. And I've also got 3 siblings. We're always super close, and very lucky with my partner now. Obviously in similar high-pressure environments, just leaning on each other and just having genuine conversations, being there for each other's support. And I've also got a close-knit group of mates that I went to school with, so they're sometimes good. I can get a different perspective. They're not in the footy world. They're just sort of there and can just be boys and hang out. And I'm very lucky with what I've got around me.
I'd love to zoom in on like the relatability piece, especially like with Mary. Like, you and Mary, like, she obviously works and plays in a super high-pressure, high-stakes situation similar to yourself. Yeah. Is it easier to be able to confide in her and have these conversations with her because she gets it?
Yeah, it is. And she definitely understands. And but, I think people look at us and they think, oh, we're talking about like our sport all the time. But sometimes it's just nice to just sit there as 2 human beings and enjoy each other's company and talk about something other than sport. And, I think probably for both of us, like, a lot of people want to talk to us about sport all the time. And, I think when we're together, we just enjoy each other's company. But it's always that sort of support it and trust that if something is going wrong, we can talk to each other about it and sort of bounce ideas off each other. And it's been really nice.
I think it's a beautiful piece. But then I also look at like the long distance. Like, you guys do what, long distance throughout the year? Yeah. How do you go like during the season when you've had a bad game or a bad training? It's like where a lot of people, they would come home and they'd have their partner to confide into, or like have a little cuddle, like, you know, you know what I mean? Like
that's the hardest thing.
I was like, how do you go like navigating that space?
Yeah, it's been tough. It's definitely not something that I ever thought that I would do, but you know, I think it sort of helped for us that as soon as we met each other and we sort of got talking, we sort of knew that was going to lead down to that path, that if we wanted to do it, it was going to be long distance. And yeah, sometimes you get home and you just want a little cuddle, but we've actually, I think it's helped us in a way to just connect on like more than just a physical level, and actually have genuine conversations and get to know about each other really well. And you know, we just navigate around it, and when we do see each other, it's just, yeah, it's the best thing ever. Like, you're really grateful for those moments we get to spend together in like physical. But yeah, we're constantly talking on FaceTime or whatever, and yeah, we sort of find our way through that.
I was going to say what works, because I imagine there's probably a lot of, because mate, to be honest, like relationships and financial pressures, they're two of the biggest contributors to mental health, right? Especially in young males. Like, what works for you guys? Like, you talked about FaceTiming and stuff like that. Is there any things that you think really work for you guys, long distance wise?
Yeah, just constant communication is what works for us, and we make a real emphasis on that. And I think just compromise as well. Like, you know, you're not always going to love the same things, I don't think. So it's sort of compromising. Like, the thing that I've noticed about having a partner is that I just want to make her happy. And I want her to feel, you know, safe and feel like I'm there for her. So anything that she wants to do, I'll be like, yeah, like, I'll do that because it's going to make you happy. I think for us, like, yeah, that constant communication, which is something that I probably doesn't come naturally to me because I'm quite shy and all that. But yeah, I think we've just found a good sort of level. And yeah.
Do you reckon that's a learnt skill, like that communication, like open communication?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think I've developed that through like rugby league as well, and I think I've had to, particularly the position I play. Like, when I first came in, it was always, you need to talk more, and I just, like, I was coming in to a team, I was 18 years old, the halfback, and I remember Peter Wallace pulling me aside and he's like, mate, we need you to talk to us. Like, we'll all do what you say.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't wrap my head around that. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around telling this senior guy that I'd watched playing footy for so long, like, telling him what to do. And it took me a little while, but the more I got comfortable with it myself, I was able to do that. And I think it is a bit of a learned skill. And, you know, I think there's always areas for improvement. And obviously talking on the footy field to talking in a relationship is much different. But, you know, if you want to and you value it, then you'll get better at it and, you know, work at it.
I love that piece. We actually have a message from Mary, a little voice memo.
Hey babes, it's Mazzy here. I've got a question to ask.
Wow.
What would a perfect day look like for you?
It's a good question. She's a deep thinker, Mazzy.
Yeah.
A perfect day for me would be having a nice sleep, so I'm nice and refreshed, getting up in the morning, taking a walk down to the beach with Mazzy and my dog Prince, just being able to sit there. It doesn't have to be too much conversation, just enjoying each other's company, maybe writing down in a journal and reading a bit of a book. Then I think it would be going for brekkie, somewhere on the beach. And to be honest, like, I think a perfect day for me is super chill, like just having no commitments, being able to enjoy the people's company around me. I'd love to be able to spend it with her, Prince, and then also my family and a few friends, maybe have a barbecue and yeah, I think that would be pretty cool.
It's a very wholesome day, brother.
Very wholesome. If we could play at night like a grand final and win that, that'd be great too.
It's like the cruisy day, but have the win of the grand final as well. I don't think you'll get a nice rest, sleep
I
after
don't
that.
think so either, but that would be great.
Man, I love that. And you talked about like how like you and Mary, like, well, Mary's a deep thinker. Do you reckon you're similar in the sense, like, because you talked about obviously like other people's opinion is like when you guys like have these discussions. Where does it go? Like, how, like, if you're willing to talk, like, you don't have to go into depth, but like, you're both obviously deep thinkers, right?
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
I think that's what actually brought us together. That's how we connected. It was just like our first sort of conversations together weren't, I don't know, they were just like sort of deep chats and able to connect on that sort of level. And like, again, I just think we just had similar values and the things we care about were very similar. And yeah, I actually really enjoy that. Like, I think a lot of my friends are like that as well, like able to have sort of chats on deeper levels and deep thinkers, but along with that, it's like the fun side of it. Like, I never really thought that Mary would take sarcasm well, so I was always a bit nervous to like be sarcastic and have a bit of a joke with her. But then I think she spun it on me and was like sarcastic one day. I was like, yes, yes.
Yeah,
Green flag.
We got it. Green flag. Always just sussing it out in the beginning,
Yeah.
like what's safe, what's not
Yeah,
safe.
yeah. And I think that's what I enjoy the most about like conversations, not just with her, but with like family and friends, is like being able to break past that barrier of, you know, just the shallow chats and having deep ones, but also being able to have a good time and have a joke with each other and just enjoy each other's company.
Well, mate, that's why I love these conversations so much, because, like, to be honest, most people who have come on here are either like really good friends, or they've been like introduced from like another party that like or a friend, right?
Yeah.
So you've got a mutual respect and a mutual trust there. So you know it's a safe space. But it's so cool, like the amount of like interesting conversations that you go. I don't know what it is, but it's something about like the headphones as well. It's just like you're almost like kind of connected in a sense. You can't hear anyone else around you, and you go like through these amazing little rabbit holes that can also benefit such a wide range of people, which I subscribe with. But I also subscribe with the sense of having mates just to take the piss out of. We had Rads on the podcast last week, and you know what Rads is like. He's just like such an old school like knock around bloke, and it's interesting like talking about like our support network and like our mates that we're leaning on. He's like, man, I just need my mates to have a laugh with. Like I don't like, to be honest, when I'm going through a shit stage, I just want my boys to be around me and take the piss out of each other. So I like both trends.
100%. I think it's such an underrated thing, just being around mates and having a laugh. Like it just, I don't know, it brings like such a nice feeling to you. And
Who are the boys that you knock around with? Obviously, like you're a leader inside, you have a great team. Is there a bunch of lads that you will, knock around with more than others, or even off field?
Yeah, well, as I sort of touched on before, like I've got a good group of mates that I went to school with that don't know anything about footy, but I've also been able to integrate some of the footy mates into that as well. Like Mitch Kenny, he's probably one of my best mates in the team, and he gets along really well with like my schoolmates as well. So it's really cool to like spend time with them, and I'm also really close with like Yowie and Dill. They're sort of like, we sort of came through at the same time, and just, I don't know, the thing about like shared experiences just brings you closer, and I think we've had that. But also like the thing that I love about sort of our team and the culture we've been able to build is that so many people come from different walks of life and different cultures, but once we're in the same building together, everyone just gets along so well. I think that's been built through vulnerability. Like we'll constantly have talks where someone will sit up the front, essentially get interviewed, and you just talk about yourself. Like the encouragement is to be vulnerable and let people get to know you, and essentially the whole team will do that.
Is that by design?
Yeah.
Who drives that?
I think it's something that Dad wanted to do. Also H, I think, was at the start. He was the interviewer, but now Kevin Kingston, he interviews people at the front. And it's like it's a really chilled environment. Like it's 10, 15 minutes, and the boys get really nervous at like the first time they do it, but it sort of just opens up the gates to then, I guess, push on with more conversations, because you get to know more about them, and they're essentially saying it to the whole room, and they might have a tough story that they talk about, and you just straight away you just get that sort of respect for each other, and it's something that I've really enjoyed, and then conversations from there just flow, and it just brings everyone closer together.
Mate, I love that. I think there's something about when you're able to be vulnerable with someone, like they're able to be vulnerable with you, right? Even like you talk about someone might be nervous getting up and having these conversations, but you wouldn't know what that person's going through. And to be honest, a few of the boys might be going through something similar. KP, when we did a podcast with him earlier this year, maybe late last year, and he talked about the exact same thing. They would do like the Triple H, where it was just like hero, highlight, and hardship.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
And so it's the same thing. So you get up, talk about like what's a highlight of your life. Might be winning a comm, might be Aussie schoolboys, might be having a kid, whatever. A hero who you look up to, could be a father, could be a role model, could be anyone really. But then also the hardship, and that's sort of like the vulnerability piece where people really lean into it. And KP said the exact same thing. He's just like, mate, when you're able to be vulnerable, it kind of like opens up these little doors. And he's like, for me, I'm interested in the person. So I really love hearing these stories. But then the connection piece, like how close you guys get to. And obviously you got shared experiences like playing together week in, week out. But I take that into like the real world, like crew who aren't in professional sport. And it's like when you're able to be vulnerable with either friends, family, like that's got to bring you closer together. 100%.
It definitely brings you closer together. And I think, as KP sort of said, you want to know the person, and what better way to know them than then sort of like just being vulnerable straight from the get-go. And but I think it's important to create that safe space where there's trust, and if you're told something, you're not then going and saying it outside those four walls. And that's something that we talk about a lot as well. And just having a safe environment with a lot of trust, and yeah, that's why I think builds connection.
Mate, I think the trust piece, it has to be there 100%. And to be honest, man, like I'm curious, like I imagine you probably get asked to come on a lot of podcasts, right? Like, and I imagine you're in off season. So I'm very grateful to come on, but like it's mental health. Like what, like why come on this podcast? Like why is this a space that you're willing to talk about?
Yeah, first of all, I actually think you're doing a really good job. I just want to say that. Like, I actually love what you're doing, and I think it is so important, particularly, well, for everyone, but particularly for males in sport to be able to open up and, just be vulnerable. Like, I think, it's just been such a taboo thing for so long that, we're meant to be these tough guys that, not talk about our feelings and whatever. But I think actually just talking about it, and a lot of time when you actually say something, someone else is feeling the same thing. Everyone's just too scared to say it. Yeah. And, I think it just helps people get through life, and not just in sport, but, tradies and all that, like them probably even more so. Like they're just, meant to be these tough guys that are, working hard at their trade. Like I think, just being able to lean on people and not having to think, I've got to do this all myself. I reckon that helps a lot. And it's definitely helped me. Like I always wanted to solve things myself, but being able to lean on people and having people there, and you don't realize till you actually say something how many people are in your corner and wanting to help you. And I think just those conversations, I think it just goes a long way. And I think sometimes it can be sort of like, oh, that's cringe, whatever, but it does at the end of the day help you, and it's very important.
Especially in like the football space. Like I'm keen to get your thoughts on it. But I remember when I first came into grade, I'm like 17, 18, and I went into Bronx, and this was just my experience. Love Bronx. I have so much love and respect for them. I had so many like role models and guys who I looked up to, like Corey Parker, Sammy Thaiday, Moosey, Matt Gargillo, like heap of crew. But it wasn't really a thing where like crew would be talking about like what was going on. And maybe I was just a younger kid, like off to the side. But I didn't have that. And I'd been through similar situations where I'd lost mates to suicide. And I was like, well, what? Like, what's happening? Like, what? And I'm keen to get your thoughts. Like, have you seen like the space of mental health like change over time from when you first came in as a teenager to being like, what, 26, 27 now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's completely changed. Even just the conversations like in the locker room have changed completely.
How so?
Just in terms of, I don't know, what's been spoken about. Like it's just definitely much more, appreciated or driven to talk about your feelings, and just, I don't know, even just like talking about relationships, like talking about having a girlfriend. Like that's just a common thing that's spoken about now, where you probably wouldn't have done that when I was like younger. It's like, if you're single, you're the cool guy, you know what I mean? Or like everyone wants stories and stuff like that. But, I think that's really driven, and I'm really grateful that our club has prioritised that. And I think it stemmed from those sort of conversations in the front of the room, getting interviewed and being vulnerable. And then, conversations just flow off the back of that. So, I think it's just the way the world is though as well. Like when I first came in, mental health was sort of just starting to become a thing, and now it's gaining momentum. And, I think it's more important now than ever, particularly in the social media era and stuff like that. So when I first came in, I really enjoyed it, but it was definitely different.
Yeah, I think it's and to be honest, mate, props for you for even just coming on and like having these discussions, because obviously like you're so influential in the community, right? So if you can be seen talking about your own vulnerabilities and struggles, then I guess it makes it okay for the rest of us and your young kids. And I think that stuff like really moves the needle and encourages conversation. And you talked about people who like you look up to, and like I guess like people who you've seen do it. I know your old man, like your dad has recently shared some struggles that he's gone through. Has he always been open to having these conversations growing up, and has that changed over time?
Not at all. And I think that's what like the proudest thing for me is he's definitely a sort of guy that doesn't want to talk about his feelings, keeps everything internalized. I'm quite similar to him in that regard. Like he's quite sort of shy and introverted, and he doesn't want to put his problems onto other people. And I think he openly talks about it now. Like if he didn't have my mum, I don't know where he'd be. Like him just being able to open up to her, and she was constantly pushing him like, come on, open up to me. And it's probably something that he just didn't do. And as soon as he did, it was like a weight off his shoulders. And for him to now speak about that openly, like I'm so proud of that. And I think that actually opens up the door for so many more people, particularly for someone of his age. Even people like his age, like that age group is probably the one that needs it the most, So I think, he sets a great example in that regard. And I know it's not something that he does easily or comes naturally to him. So I think, if he can do it, and he definitely is my hero, it sort of feels like, why wouldn't I do it and try and help the next generation?
What do you think changed? Like, what do you think clicked for him?
Honestly, I think it was the way that the conversations were developing around training and what he was seeing around there when people would get up in front of the room and talk about their struggles so openly.
Yeah.
Sometimes in front of people they just met, but they felt safe to do it. And he built that culture, but he probably felt like he wasn't living up to it all the time. So, I think that really encouraged him to open up. And I think my mum as well, like she's just, she's the rock of our family. She's a queen. She, just her nurturing love and care. It's actually her birthday today. So happy birthday, Mum.
Happy birthday, Mama. We love that.
You.
Yeah.
Just her nurture and love and care just has allowed, not only him to open up, but all of us as a family to be able to talk openly about things and create a real safe space for us. And it's amazing.
Do you think that gets passed down to your siblings as well?
Yeah, for sure. My little brother, he's such a mummy's boy, but I don't know, he's got this hard exterior, but the interior now, like he's so open about everything he says, and if he's struggling, he'll just tell my mum straight away. And I think that's really cool, and I think it's really important for this like next generation coming through with social media only becoming more prevalent. So it's cool to see.
How's the relationship with your sister Indi in particular? Because I know you guys were super close growing up, right? Like how does that dynamic change over time from being like youngsters doing everything to being teenagers to being like now adults having your own careers? How has that I guess like either A, shaped you, or B, like the dynamic of it?
Yeah, it's been a funny journey for us. Like when we're only 14 months apart, so when we were first growing up, toddlers, like we were best of friends, like just did everything together, and I was always sort of looking out for her. And then we sort of got to the teenage years where it gets a bit interesting. I was so like overprotective of her, like I didn't want her like talking to guys, and if
you're that
guys
protective
around,
older brother.
Like, no.
Yeah, man.
But like she needed to live too, so it was like looking back, it was the wrong thing to do. But I guess that's just part of growing up and learning along the way. And we probably didn't like each other much from 16 to 18, sort of those years. But as we've gotten older, we've just got an amazing respect for each other and trust. And I love her. And I think we've become really close now. I sort of look at her like she's just one of my best friends. I think my youngest sister, she's still like my little sis. Like I want to look after her, but
still the protective older brother, bro.
Still the protective, changed a bit, like not as protective, but I just want to look after her. Where like Indi, I'm really proud of her of the journey she's taken, and she's constantly trying to better herself and chasing goals in different ways to what I am, but same sort of mindset. And
Well, we've actually got a voice message from Indi.
From Indi as well. Wow.
Hey Nath, I know we talk about the future a lot and where we see ourselves in the next couple years or so, but I don't actually think I've ever asked what you see after footy. Like, would you do coaching like Dad, or would you want to do something more entrepreneurial and more creative? And do you feel a sense of pressure once footy's over to maintain your success, or what you see as success now? Or are you happy to kind of take a backseat and live more of a private life? Love ya.
That's a great question. Both her and Mazzy have come up with good questions. I don't know. I've probably been thinking more about what's to come after footy recently, just getting a bit older and stuff like that. But, I sort of always thought, I was like, once I'm done footy, like I want to just be out of the spotlight, live a real chill life, like be able to travel. And I still would love to do that, but I just know within myself I'd have something there that would, like I'd want to push myself to chase something. I don't know exactly what that is yet. I probably would like to stay in footy in some capacity, but honestly, I don't think I could be a head coach. I've seen what Dad goes through, and it's just insane. And that's why he's got so many grey hairs. I think it's just such a stressful job. I would like after footy to have a bit more of a stress-free sort of life, but I don't know, to be honest. Indi's quite inspirational at the moment. She's gone through her own journey. She's got like her own sort of brand called Empower Her. She's actually she's doing her first fundraiser on Friday for domestic violence. So very proud of her. And just seeing that, like, just got so many people around me that aren't in the footy world, but they're just getting after it, like just chasing things and going after their goals. And, maybe that would be for me, just maybe have like a sort of side hustle or a business or something like that I would, pursue after footy, but I'm not too sure yet.
I do want to zoom into that particular piece in a second, but the second part of that question was like the feeling of pressure to be successful after already having so much success in footy. Do you think you would feel that at all? Yeah,
it's interesting. I've never actually thought about that. I don't think so. I think where I'm at now, like, no one can put more pressure on me than I put on myself. And if I know I'm doing things for the right reasons, or, you know, not being lazy and doing things to essentially help people, like, I think that's something that I'm really passionate about. Like, the position I'm in a really good position where I can actually help people and sort of be inspirational. And, you know, it's something that I don't really like to talk about too much, but it's the reality. And, you know, sometimes it can be as easy as saying yes to a photo for a little kid, like, and just seeing how happy they get. Like, that's something that I definitely take for granted. So maybe after footy, it's going to a space where it might be mental health, or it might be helping young kids sort of on their path into the NRL. Like, I'm not too sure. I think, yeah, I'm not too worried about the pressure. I'm more worried about sort of what I think of myself and what the people around me think of me. And I think that comes back to that sort of fear of other people's opinions. Like, I've really narrowed that space to who I care about and their opinions.
I think that space of like finding something that you're really passionate about is a great piece of the puzzle. Yeah, like I remember I read a book by Ray Dalio. He's the founder of I think it's Bridgewater, one of the biggest hedge funds in America. He's got this book called Principles, which is an incredible read. And I remember there's this one page, and it's like essentially after you make like a certain amount of money, like having any like more money doesn't make you more happier, right? Yeah. And so his whole like life philosophy is around meaningful work and meaningful relationships. And then once I saw that, I was like, that's it. I was like, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to be doing. Yeah. And so, like when I obviously got medically retired, finished up footy a couple of years ago, and well, I remember when I was reading that, I was like, okay, well, like as long as I can like make ends meet, and obviously like still ambitious, still want to do some really really incredible things. But it's tied into meaningful work and meaningful relationships. So the people we're hanging around, we've touched on that. Yeah. But then also like it's like, well, how do we make genuine change? And mental health was always like a passion of mine. Like I mentioned before, like lost friends to suicide, and when I came into grade, not many people were talking about it. So it's like, how can we genuinely shift that needle, and how can we make genuine change? It was like, well, how do you leverage your strengths? It was like conversations with like incredible people. Let's start a podcast and start pushing these things, right? And it's like, you don't want to be that guy who's just a social media guy. You want to have the legitimacy behind it. So I was like, okay, well, let's go back to uni and start studying psychology, and let's actually have the real foundations of like what is actually going to help. That's why I love that doco Studs, because he's been in the game for like 50 something years, and he's got all these clinical hours under his belt, and he's actually seen it, and they broadcast that. And it's like, people away from this conversation are going to be taking away so many little great tools and strategies that you've shared today, which I think is awesome. So I love that you seem like a very curious person. Like you're constantly looking for things. Do you find that? Do you think like you're curious about other things outside of footy?
Yeah, definitely. Like footy's always been my passion, but I'm definitely curious just about anything really, anything that's going to make me better, make me feel better, but also the people around me. And it's funny you sort of touched on that. Like I was just thinking about the other day, I was like, what do I want to be like going forward, like after footy and all that? Like, of course, all the sort of hype and that goes away, but what like at my core value do I want to be? And I sort of thought, like, I was like, I want to have a family of my own one day, and I just want to be able to support them. I want to be able to support my partner. I want to be able to support my family. And of course, like money comes into it, but I think people just think about that. Like they're like, all right, I have to put bread on the table. Like I just want to make as much money as I can. That'll support them. But I want to support them in a holistic sort of nature, like, you know, emotionally, spiritually. Make sure they're loved. Make sure, you know, they feel comfortable to have these conversations, and not only support my family, but like if I have kids in the future, like I would love that, but also my parents, like being able to support them and just having that real sort of tight knit group. And I think that is what would be fulfilling for me. And obviously you have to work hard for that. And, but yeah, I think that's the main thing I want in the future.
I think that's such a beautiful thing. And it's like, and I love that it's like, money's like, while it's important, it's almost come secondary to being a good person and like the values that you want to pass down to your kids. Kids, you think about kids soon? Are they? Is there any on the cards, or are you guys just too dialed in at the moment?
Yeah, it's obviously tough that we're both, you know, pretty, you know, stuck into our sport. So yeah, we'd definitely want to in the future. I'd love for it to be with Mary. I just think she'd be the best mother. But yeah, we'll see. It's not a rush at the moment. But yeah, definitely in the future, I sort of see that like post footy, would love to just have a little family of my own. But yeah, we'll see.
Maybe here on the Goldie, brother.
You never know.
We'll get you on the surfboard. We'll have you out
That'd
the
be
front.
great. That'd be
That'd
great.
be
Just bring up
unreal.
little surfers. That'd be nice.
Yeah, from out west to coming to Goldie.
Well, that's like Mick Fanning, right? He's from Penrith.
Mate, two very aligned. I remember when we did the podcast with Jess, Jess Fox. I know you guys are pretty close, and she mentioned that on the podcast. But it was just like she talks about like the community out in Penrith and how like, and we spoke about it this morning when we were having a coffee. It's around like these people are like just so genuine, and it's almost like that country feel where it's just like there's no chip on your shoulder. Like everyone's sort of everyone's willing to help other people, which I love, man. I think it's a beautiful piece.
It's my favourite thing about Penrith, and it's probably why it's felt so much like home to me. I think, we sort of touched on, but it's like if someone started a small business, there's so many people in the area that will support it and help each other. And, in a world where tall poppy syndrome is very rife and very prevalent, I think that's the nice thing about Penrith is just genuine people. And even people like Jess and Mick, like they're constantly reaching out, like saying congratulations. Anytime we see them, it's obviously that mutual respect, but it's sort of like you're connected on a deeper level just from having that connection to Penrith. And that's what I like.
Because Jess and Naomi, they came in and spoke to the boys before the grand final.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like I think it was just before the final series actually, and we probably weren't going that well. Like we're sort of teetering a bit and sort of up and down form. And they came in and spoke, brought their gold medals in, and all the boys were pumped because the Olympics had just happened. So we were very grateful for them to come in, but. When they did, like, just what they were saying is exactly what we needed to hear. And it was something that we'd spoken about so much. And I don't know if anyone tipped them up to, like, say these things, but it sounded like it came out so organically, but just about, like, mindset.
I was going to say, what are they saying?
Yeah, it was a lot about, like, mindset, staying present, embracing the moment. Obviously, like, Olympics is just such a high-pressure thing. And in both their sports, it's, like, just them. Like, we have a team around us to help each other and bring each other up, but it was just them. And just hearing them talk about that was, it was really cool. And all the boys walked out of it, growing an extra inch, I think, and it was just mad. And then they ended up coming to the grand final. I got to watch it, so it was sick.
I saw them on the field, like ripping in, having a good time. Like that's so they made that, but that's also going to be cool for people who have been in similar situations where, like, same thing, like they've been working for 4 years to one moment. Like you couldn't imagine the pressure on that. Is that conversations that you guys will have offline at all? Like obviously they came into the club, but do you guys have that connection where you can like have those conversations offline?
Yeah, pretty much anytime we'll catch up, like we'll sort of chat like naturally about those things, like we'll go down that path. And just hearing it from a different perspective in a different sport, but such a similar like mindset, you know what I mean? Like prioritizing the same sort of things. And it's just really cool to hear. And it's been mad to sort of have that friendship, and obviously just seeing her kill it now, it's mad.
It's interesting, like the professional sporting space, right? Like I think being in this space, like obviously gives you such a leg up, like when you leave sport, like, and I think that's natural. I forgot who I was having a conversation with. Maybe it was Ariane or Kaylee or one of the swimmers, and they were talking about being in professional sport. It kind of like it opens the door, but you've still got to walk through it. You've still got to do the work. While there's a lot of people who are willing to have you in certain businesses. Like I remember when I was going through Titans, I remember thinking like, oh, like footy's not going to be forever. But I still want to figure out what I wanted to do. So I tried all these different career options, bro. Like, I remember I loved restaurants and food. So I went in like a fine dining restaurants. Like I love property. So I worked for a mortgage broker. And these are like just days, like going in, like spotting on your days off. But they were so willing to have me in there because you're in that environment. I can't imagine them doing that for many. But you still gotta walk through it, bro. I think that's probably a good piece. And even that's what I tell to a lot of past players. Like when we catch up with them, especially with the RLPA, it's just like figuring out what you don't want to do is just as important as figuring out what you wanted to do. So try different things.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I'm probably not the best person to advocate this because early on, like I did try a few different things, but I sort of got to the point where I felt like it was taken away from my footy. And I've sort of always been a person that like so passionate about footy. I want to put everything I've got into that. And then whatever happens is sort of like a byproduct. Probably now is a bit different. Like I'm starting to think more towards the future, but I sort of came to the realization. I was like, all right, you can gain so much from sport and playing professional sport, not only as a player, but as a human. And I sort of looked at it like two different entities, I guess. Like me as the player, like I want to improve every day. I want to get better. I want to win things and all that. But I also want to just improve as a person. I think that would hold me in better stead for post-footy. Like just if you're a good person, you can learn so much from footy, not just about the way the game's played, but even in a business sense, like in a, you know, communication and like building relationships. And, you know, I really wanted to dive into that, and also leadership as well, and sort of do more work around that space rather than try all these different courses. So obviously I'm in a really lucky position where like financially I'm really like quite stable. So I was like, all right, I'm going to put everything I have into footy, but don't just do it as a footy player. Like learn life skills that are going to help you post footy. And I think that's something that I've sort of taken on.
But it's like even the conversations that you'll be having with like different brands, like people who like want to be a part of the like Penrith Panthers, and like imagine those offline conversations would be so important, because like these guys have done it. It's like stand on the shoulders of giants. Like you'll be learning from these guys and girls who have already done it. So you've got an easy access to have these conversations, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, it's such a lucky position to have those conversations with people at the top of their game and just, you know, killing life. So I think that's something I'm really grateful for. And I've also just been like, just don't be too arrogant to not learn more things. Like you can constantly learn. Like, all right, we've won 4 competitions in a row. Like, so what? Like you can constantly get better and just constantly learn things, and just try and listen as much as you can. Like I honestly think listening is such an underrated skill. Just if you're in a conversation with someone, just listen. Like you never know what you might learn. And like it's cool to be in these conversations with high profile people, you know, in all different sports. And I love that, but you can learn just as much from the everyday person. And actually, my roommate, he's lost 40 kilos. So
shout out to
his name's
him.
George. Yeah, shout out. But like I learn things just from sitting down and having a conversation with him, and he inspires me. So it's like it can be so open to so many different things. Like just don't be too arrogant to not listen to anyone you have a conversation with, and that's about staying present as well.
Mate, it's like listen to listen, don't listen to speak.
Yeah, exactly right.
that's such a cool piece. Like we did a podcast with a girl called Tilly, who's incredible, and she spoke about she's an athlete with Movember, and she spoke about this time of like her and her partner, right? And it was obviously like a super. It was a tough time for them. He was going through a bout of depression, and she won't mind me talking about this because she spoke about it on the podcast. And they were having these conversations, and they came, and she was coming home, and it was a really tough time. Like she didn't know if he was like really going to be there or not, because that's how far down the line he was. And then she got home, he starts like breaking down, and she's just like constantly in like fix mode. Like, how do we fix it? And I think we all go through these things when people share like struggles with us. Like we just want to fix it, especially men. Like we just don't do that. Like, you know what I mean? But the best thing that he said was, he's like, Till, like, I don't need you to talk at me. I just need you to listen. And we put that clip on socials, and it just went insane, because like people obviously resonated with it. Where it's like, no, don't listen to talk, listen to listen. And sometimes that's all we need. Like I know Boothie and Nico are great advocates for this around when they've gone through tough times. Like they both talked about it on their respective podcasts, where it's just like, sometimes you just got to be there, and you can put that in a mental health setting, but you can also put that into a business and life setting on learning. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, I love that. Like I just think sometimes like your presence is enough. Like you don't need to come up with all the answers. And sometimes like I definitely fall into that trap. I'm like, you have to fix this. I have to tell them, you know, what to do and all that. But I think that's something that Mary's really opened my eyes to as well, is like having a partner, just be there, like show that you care, show your love, and just, your presence is enough sometimes, and just listen and take it all on board. Like you don't have to come up with the answers, like just hear them, like listen. Like I think that's sometimes all people want, is to actually just be heard, you know?
Just listen, a little cuddle, man. That's all we need. That's all we need. That's all we need, man. It's very simple. It's very simple. Mate, Nate, thanks so much for coming on, man. I am very appreciative of you coming on and just being so open and vulnerable. I think it's a huge prop to you, man. Before we do wrap things up, what do you think's the biggest thing that you'd like to talk about that we probably didn't touch on today? Is there something that stands out, whether it's a message?
I don't know. I feel like we've covered a lot. I don't know. I think like it's as simple as just spread more love than hate. I think we're in a world that's so easy to just hate. I've actually got love on my shirt today, so that's a little underwritten message. But yeah, it's so easy to be in a world where, you know, jealousy is so rife and, you know, just spread so much hate. But just if you've got the option, just try and pick love as much as you can. Just try and support people, show that you care, and I just think the world would be a better place. So, yeah, that's all I've got to say.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, brother.